When we say lockout, that means locking out something. Naturally, tagging means applying a tag. In your company, lockout and tag out can be two of the most important things you can do for safety, particularly when you're using machines and equipment. Generally, the safety purpose of lockout tag out is to prevent machinery or equipment from unexpected startup or release of hazardous energy while the machinery or equipment is being serviced or maintained. Keep in mind that lockout tag out safety is more than just turning off the electricity. It means controlling the release of hazardous energy as well. The lockout tag out program does not include cord and plug connected equipment such as portable power tools. However, it's important that before you clean, repair, or maintain that particular type of equipment, you must remove the electrical plug from the electrical energy source and keep the plug in your sight and under your control. This is to prevent someone from plugging it into the electrical power while you're working on the equipment. Hazardous energy can include any source of electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, or other energy. Springs, clutches, gravity, hoses, steam lines, and other potentially hazardous energy sources must be locked out and tagged out before servicing or maintaining equipment or machinery. Keep in mind that one machine may have several sources of energy, each requiring locking out and tagging. If you have a question or don't understand something related to lockout tagout, be sure and ask your supervisor. Safety is much too important not to understand. Confined spaces have been around a long time. They have also been killing people for a long time. Confined space is something that deserves respect and strict adherence to safety rules relating to the entry of confined space. Danger is something you can usually see or hear. The serious dangers associated with confined spaces, however, are invisible and silent. Entering a tank, vault, boiler, or manhole, for example, can be a hazardous journey for anyone who does not respect these unknown potential killers. Regulatory agencies define confined space as any space which by design has limited openings for entry and exit, unfavorable natural ventilation which could contain or produce dangerous air contaminants, and one which is not intended for continuous occupancy. Some examples are tanks, vaults, or manholes. It's up to you to know what a confined space is and take the appropriate action to prevent an accident or injury. If the ventilation system in a small area fails or is not working, the dangers of asphyxiation is still possible, and this could be defined as a confined space. Your organization may not have confined spaces, but if you do, you need special training before working in confined spaces. The objective of fire extinguishers is to save lives and property in that order. Always remember that life safety is much more important than property. If you can't extinguish a fire safely, call the fire department and let them handle the situation. In the event of a small fire, call the fire department anyway because small fires can quickly get out of hand and seconds count in the firefighting business. We know that everyone takes fire extinguishers for granted, as they aren't used on a frequent basis. First of all, every extinguisher must be inspected at least once a month. Inspected to make sure they're clean, the pin is sealed on the handle to indicate it hasn't been used, and of course to check the gauge if your extinguisher has one for the correct pressure. Usually, maintenance shops have extra extinguishers in the event one is used or found to be defective. The extra extinguishers can stand in while the defective extinguisher is serviced. Inspect all extinguishers at least monthly. Once a year, a fire extinguisher service company will come in and service all extinguishers and issue a service tag. During your inspection, check the tags to make sure they have this tag and it's current. If the tag is over a year old, it needs to be serviced. Good housekeeping is the most important part of fire prevention. Clean, neat, and organized. Don't forget to keep closets, janitorial rooms, and other equipment areas clean, neat, and organized. Store flammable liquids in approved containers and don't leave paint cans, thinners, or solvents around your work area. They need to be put in safety containers and properly stored when not in use. Check your equipment, especially your electrical cords, tools, plugs, and receptacles, to make sure they're in serviceable condition. If you work with flammable liquids, pay attention to spark-producing tools, electrical motors, and other items that can ignite flammable vapors. An approved flammable liquid container is one that has a spring-loaded lid to prevent spills, but will allow the container to open slightly if the liquid gets hot and expands. It allows excess pressure to escape, but won't spill the liquid. Perhaps the most important part of a safety container is the flame arrestor. It's a mesh screen inside the container that looks like a filter. It's designed to prevent flames from returning inside the container, causing an explosion. Be sure to put soiled rags into safety waste cans, metal cans with lids on the top. You create spontaneous combustion problems by leaving greasy rags sitting in a corner. Use a metal container that has a lid. We could continue with fire prevention, such as not blocking exits with materials, smoking only in authorized areas, emptying trash daily, knowing where exits are located, and keeping your equipment clean to prevent residue buildup and fire potential. But we don't have time to cover these subjects in this program. They're common sense items, and you understand the importance of preventing fires rather than trying to put them out. If you don't know how to use fire extinguishers, you should get some training. Stand about 10 feet from the fire, pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the handle, and then sweep from side to side as you move closer to the fire. It's not as easy as it looks, so make sure you know how to use fire extinguishers. Each year, thousands of people are injured by falling off ladders. Let's begin a review of the safe way to use ladders. It's more than just climbing up on a ladder and exercising caution. It begins when you first select your ladder. In offices, small step stools are used to reach high places, but these are not considered ladders. They are step stools, and they can be dangerous also. On step stools, be sure they are in good condition and do not have slippery surfaces. Never stand on a chair or other makeshift step stool. The very first safety rule when using step ladders is to inspect the ladder. Check the steps to make sure that they are not slippery. Quite often, grease, oil, solvents, and other materials can be left on the rungs or sides of the ladder and can cause you to slip and fall. Inspect the ladder. Basically, what we're saying is the ladder must be in good condition and maintained in that condition, or it cannot be used. The next step is up to you. Naturally, good footing is important when placing ladders. Never place ladders on boxes, barrels, or other unstable bases to obtain additional height. If the base of the ladder has the potential for slipping, then non-slip bases should be used on the ladder. If the ground is soft or has the potential for slipping when weight is applied on the ladder, then additional footing or a more stable base must be used. When climbing up the ladder, hold the handrails. Make sure the ladder is tall enough to do the job, because it's dangerous to step on the top two steps of any ladder. You should keep the center of your body within the inside rails of the ladder. If you lean out past the side rails, the center of gravity of your body and the step ladder can cause the ladder to fall to one side. Keep your belt buckle or the center of your body within the inside rails of the ladder. When ascending or descending a ladder, always face the ladder, holding both hands on the rails. If you must use materials or tools, hoist them up with a rope or other device. You need both hands when climbing up or down a ladder. Of course, when using step ladders, don't place them near doors because an opening door could create an accident. If you must use ladders near doors, place a sign on the inside of the door to alert anyone that you're using a step ladder on the other side and not to open the door. All the same rules apply to metal ladders as with wooden ladders. However, let's add one more rule. Never use a metal or aluminum ladder when working with electricity. That means even when you're changing a light bulb. The metal or aluminum ladder could easily contact an energized electrical wire and serve as an excellent conductor of electricity, and you can imagine the result. Don't use metal or aluminum ladders near electricity. When using straight ladders, there are several important safety tips to consider. All ladders must be inspected before use. They must be free of dirt, grease, or slippery materials. When placing a straight ladder on a working surface, use the 4-to-1 rule. For every 4 feet of length of the ladder, it should be placed 1 foot from the vertical of the surface on which you rest the ladder. What this means is that when setting up a straight ladder at the proper angle, you place the base a distance from the vertical wall equal to 1/4 the working length of the ladder. A 12-foot ladder would be placed 3 feet from the vertical wall. This provides rigid support and keeps the ladder within its designated center of gravity. Never use any ladder in a horizontal position as runways or as scaffolds. Okay, the next rule on straight ladders is when you are gaining access to a roof or landing, make sure the ladder extends past any landing or roof at least 3 feet. This provides you with hand support when getting on or off the roof. It is highly recommended that ladders be tied off in some manner to prevent it from slipping from side to side. There are many other types of ladders and climbing devices, such as rolling scaffolds, stationary scaffolds, but the greatest number of injuries occur from everyday step ladders and straight ladders. Serious injuries occur from falls off ladders every day. Compressors are the heart of any industrial operation. Without steam or air, most if not all major plant operations will cease to function. Only trained maintenance personnel should operate or repair this equipment. Compressors need daily checks on oil level and to have the air traps relieved of any oil. A maintenance function repair log must be kept on each compressor. Guarding and automatic start signs must be present at all times. Do not remove or disengage the pressure relief valve, as this act could cause serious property damage and potential injuries to employees. It takes a professionally trained maintenance staff to ensure constant availability and minimal downtime on this equipment. The term Right to Know explains the purpose of the Hazard Communications Program. The right to know information is about chemicals, how they can harm you, and what you should do to keep from experiencing injuries and illnesses related to chemicals and hazardous materials. It's an organizational responsibility, but as with every safety program, each person has an individual responsibility. Individual responsibility means following your organization's policies and procedures and thinking about safety on every job. Everyone should know quite a bit about MSDS or Material Safety Data Sheets. MSDSs are factual information sheets that relate to chemicals. The manufacturer is required to provide the required information, and each employer is required to maintain these MSDSs on file. Anyone who uses the chemical may then ask to see the MSDS to determine information that may not be provided on the labels. The employer may have all the MSDS information on an electronic database. The primary requirement is the MSDS must be readily accessible. If the company uses computers, a printer should be available to provide employees with a hard copy from which to read the information, particularly in a medical or emergency situation. The information on the MSDS is technical in nature, which may or may not be useful to users of the chemicals. The MSDS also contains information on what type of personal protective equipment are necessary and first aid procedures to take in case of exposure. When training employees in MSDS, it is not sufficient just to have them read the information on the MSDS. Training must be provided, and it must be delivered in the language spoken by the employee. Any new chemical should be reported, and appropriate material safety data sheets should be routed to the Risk Management Department for posting, as well as the department filing the information in their own book. Signs should be posted indicating where the MSDS books are maintained. Everyone should also know where first aid kits are located. Containers of hazardous chemicals must be labeled in English. Generally, where there are non-English speaking personnel, the label should be in that language or languages also. Labels must contain the following information: identity of the hazardous chemical, appropriate hazard warnings, name and address of the chemical manufacturer, importer, or other responsible party. You may use signs, placards, symbols, batch tickets, or printed operating procedures in place of labels on individual containers as long as the meaning is fully understood by the people using the chemicals. Some common labeling terms include combustible, flammable, corrosive, irritating, and toxic. There are several systems and standards for labeling chemicals, but there is not a uniformly accepted system to date. Each system and standard has advantages and limitations. The National Fire Protection Association NFPA 704 is another labeling system, which is a color-coded system. It uses a color-coded diamond with 4 quadrants, in which numbers are used in the upper 3 quadrants to signal the degree of emergency health hazard, which is blue, the fire hazard, which is red, and the reactivity hazard, color-coded yellow. The bottom quadrant is used to indicate water reactivity, radioactivity, biohazards, and other special hazards. The NFPA system is good for alerting personnel the degree of hazard of the chemical and is helpful in drawing attention to storage needs and emergency equipment requirements. The Department of Transportation, or DOT, system is used for the transportation of hazardous materials. HMIS, or Hazardous Materials Information System, is one of the most popular systems for labeling containers. It uses standard labels to communicate hazards through the use of colors, numbers, and letters of the alphabet, and symbols. Do your part. Join the HazCom team and make chemical safety a major part of your job. We have covered a lot of information in this program, but we still haven't touched on a wide variety of topics that round out a safety program. We left out such things as safe lifting, machine guarding, chemicals and hazardous materials, housekeeping, and many others. Maintenance persons are generally exposed to all hazards within an organization because you're called upon to do so many jobs in so many areas. You're professionals, and certainly don't get the credit for all the work you do. No one is going to compliment you keeping the entire organization functioning, and probably won't get credit for having an accident-free safety record. Well, that's life. The reward for safety is your own health and safety. What better reward could that be? Thanks for your hard work, your safety record, and the many jobs you perform in a professional manner.